The cop said, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for kidnapping a minor," and for a second I honestly couldn't breathe. Because behind that locked basement door, my 9-year-old daughter was sitting on a metal folding chair wrapped in a blanket that wasn't hers, clutching a little juice box like it was the only safe thing left in the world. And the woman in handcuffs was the president of our HOA, all because I told her no to a playdate. I'm Ethan Miller, and I'm not the guy who starts drama. I'm the guy who pays his dues, waves at neighbors, keeps the lawn neat, and just tries to raise his kid in peace. But peace doesn't exist when you live under someone like Deborah Whitman. Deborah ran Maplewood Ridge like it was her personal kingdom. Not managed, not served, ran. Every smile from her came with a clipboard behind it like she was measuring you for a fine. She loved rules the way some people love power tools. Loud, aggressive, and always looking for an excuse to use them. And the worst part was the board letter. People were scared of her or tired or both, and she knew it. The first time she really noticed me was the day she decided my daughter should be part of her life. It started as a message all sweet and fake friendly like she was inviting me to brunch. "Hey Ethan, Brandon would love a playdate with Lily." I read it twice, then a third time slower, like maybe I'd misunderstood the English language. Because Brandon was 14, Lily was 9. That's not a playdate. That's a red flag with a megaphone. I tried to be polite because that's what you do in a neighborhood where everyone shares walls and gossip. I told her Lily had homework, chores, we already had plans, anything to keep it soft. But Deborah didn't accept soft. She kept pushing. Why not? What plans? What's the real reason? Like she was cross-examining me in a courtroom she built inside her own head. Finally, I said the truth, calm, firm adult. They're different ages, and I'm not comfortable leaving them together unsupervised. That should have ended it. Instead, it lit a fuse. Her replies came fast, sharp, personal. She called me judgmental. She accused me of making assumptions. Then she went lower, implying that if anything was wrong with Brandon, it must be because I was the kind of man who sees darkness everywhere. And then she sent the line that still makes my stomach turn when I think about it. Precious things fade faster than people expect. Not a threat, right? Just a creepy little sentence, dressed up like a fortune cookie, written by someone who wanted me to feel scared but couldn't resist acting clever. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. I wanted to tell myself I was overreacting. I wanted to laugh it off because normal people don't talk like that. But Deborah wasn't normal, and my gut knew it. The following Monday, Lily didn't come home. At first, it was small panic, the kind every parent gets when the bus is late. 10 minutes, 20, 30. I kept checking the street like my eyes could summon her. I called her phone even though she didn't always answer, and it went straight to voicemail. When I called the school, the woman on the other end said, "Oh yes, Lily was picked up." I felt relief for half a heartbeat. Then she added, "Her aunt came for her." My hand went cold around the phone. Lily doesn't have an aunt in this city. Not one. I drove to the school so fast I don't even remember the turns. I walked in shaking, trying to keep my voice steady, and the staff gave me a description. Middle-aged woman, confident, friendly, signed a clipboard like she owned the place. It didn't take long for my mind to land on one name, and I hated that it made sense. Deborah. I went straight to the HOA office, because where else would the queen be sitting? And there she was, behind her desk, perfect hair, perfect posture, pretending her life wasn't a weapon. "Ethan," she said, like we were old friends. I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I just asked, "Where is my daughter?" Her face flickered just for a second, like she wasn't expecting me to walk in with fire in my eyes. Then she put on her concern, pressed a hand to her chest, and told me she had no idea what I was talking about. I demanded security footage. She blinked slow and said, "Oh, cameras were mysteriously down today." Mysteriously? Of course they were. That's when I called the police. Officer Brooks arrived, calm, professional, and he did what good cops do. He listened and he watched. And Deborah, she performed. She gave one story, then another. She said she saw a family friend pick Lily up. Then she said it was a relative. Then she couldn't remember the car model. Then she couldn't remember the color. The details kept changing, like she was shuffling a deck of lies, hoping one card would land face up and save her. And all I could hear in my head was that message. Precious things fade faster than people expect. That was the moment the fear turned into something darker. Not just worry. Not just panic. Dread. We started searching. Neighbors came outside whispering, looking at me like I was a tragedy playing in real time. I called Lily's friends' parents, checked parks, checked the community pool, checked the little walking trail behind the mailboxes, anywhere a kid might wander. Hours passed. Then night. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch in the dark, staring at Lily's shoes by the door like they were evidence of a life that might already be gone. And somewhere in the middle of that night, I broke. I actually started wondering if I'd done this to her, if I'd said the wrong thing, if I'd been too blunt, too suspicious, too protective, and I'd triggered some neighbor war I didn't understand. I thought, what if Deborah was just awkward, and I humiliated her? What if I was the villain in someone else's story? Then I imagined Lily alone, scared, calling for me, and that self-doubt snapped in half like dry wood. Because even if I'd been rude, so what? Even if I'd been wrong, so what? You don't punish a child to win an argument. By the next morning, I was running on coffee rage and one clear purpose. I printed screenshots of Deborah's messages, every insult, every escalation, that one sick little line. I handed them to Officer Brooks, and I watched his eyes change. Not dramatic, not emotional, just sharper. And that's when the neighborhood started to crack open too. A man down the street, Mr. Hernandez, stepped forward, hesitant at first, like he was afraid of becoming Deborah's next target. He said he'd seen Deborah walking quickly the day before, with a small figure beside her in a hoodie head down. Deborah immediately snapped. That's absurd, like she was swatting a fly. But her voice was too loud, too fast. Then a second neighbor spoke up, Mrs. Grant, quiet but steady. She said she'd seen the same thing around the same time, same direction, and she remembered because Deborah looked angry, not concerned. Now we had a pattern, not a feeling, not a guess. Deborah backed up behind her desk and started talking about rights and harassment and how dare you waving her bylaws like a shield. She refused consent to search her home, refused everything, and for the first time, the crowd wasn't buying it. Somebody whispered, she renovated her basement last month. Somebody else said I heard yelling once and thought it was a TV. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I wanted to run to her house and tear the place apart with my bare hands. But Officer Brooks held up a hand and said, we're doing this the right way. And I hated him for being right, while also clinging to him like he was the only thing keeping me from doing something stupid. The warrant came through faster than I expected, like the universe finally decided to stop playing games. Squad cars rolled up to Deborah's house, and suddenly Maplewood Ridge didn't look like a nice community anymore. It looked like what it always was, a stage for power until real authority shows up. Deborah opened the door with that same fake smile, but her hands were shaking. She tried to block the entry, tried to argue, tried to lecture the police like they were teenagers breaking HOA parking rules. Officer Brooks didn't raise his voice. He just said, ma'am, step aside. Deborah didn't. So they stepped around her. They moved through her house room by room, and I followed behind, barely aware of anything except the sound of my own breathing. Every second felt like a coin flip between relief and catastrophe. Then we reached the basement door. It was locked. Deborah's eyes flicked to it, and she tried to laugh. Oh, please, that's just storage. Officer Brooks asked for the key. Deborah said she couldn't find it. And that was it. The officer nodded once, and another cop drove his shoulder into the door. Wood cracked. The lock screamed, and the door burst open like the truth finally forcing its way into daylight. The basement smelled stale like dust-old paint and something else, something human. A flashlight beam swept the steps, and there she was. Lily, small, pale, sitting on a folding chair like she'd been told not to move, wrapped in a blanket, clutching a little juice box in both hands. For a second I couldn't move. My brain refused to believe it was real, like if I blinked, she'd vanish again. Then she looked up and whispered, Dad, and my legs gave out. I dropped to the floor, crawling to her, pulling her into my arms so tight I was terrified I'd hurt her, and she just clung to me like I was the last solid thing in the world. I kept saying, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, like the words could erase the last 48 hours. Behind me, Deborah started crying. Not real crying, performance crying. She said she meant no harm. She said Lily was safe. She said it was just for a little while. And then she said the sentence that made the room go silent in a way I'll never forget. 48 hours is nothing, she insisted, eyes wide like she couldn't understand why anyone was upset. I just wanted to teach him humility. That was the moment Deborah Whitman stopped being an HOA president. She stopped being a Karen. She became what she really was. They turned her around. They cuffed her. And when Officer Brooks read her rights, Deborah tried to scream over him, tried to argue, tried to bargain like she could, manage her way out of a kidnapping. But the sound of the cuffs closing, that sound was final. As they walked her out, neighbors stared from their lawns and porches, some with hands over their mouths, some recording, some just frozen. Deborah's kingdom watched her fall, and for once, nobody rushed to defend her. The last thing I saw was her face twisted with disbelief, like she couldn't accept that her authority had limits. Then the squad car door shut, and right there with my daughter safe in my arms, and the woman who did it finally powerless. One thought burned through everything else when someone shows you who they are: believe them the first time.